The following Let's Play has been rated perfectly fine to watch. Any attempts to break the game are for entertainment value only. However, if any typos happen to be found... Hello everyone! Welcome back to this game! When we last left off, I started playing Jester's Hunt in test play mode, which allows me to bypass objects and events whenever I'm holding the circle button, which allows me to glitch the game. And that is the important thing that I'm trying to do here. Alright, I have just created a test play file, and remember all those times, well, both times where I talked about how you were given an item that keeps track of whether you're saving or not? So, while I'm on this screen, I have a save item, and then when I exit the screen, the item is taken away, and I find myself being sent in front of World 1. However, if I exit and just go to resume, I'm loading the game, and the game recognizes that I have that save item, so instead of placing me in front of World 1, it puts me at the entrance to the castle. So that is how that works. Now, we have plenty of trophies and such to go ahead and open both Worlds 2 and 3. In fact, pretty sure we actually do have... Let's see. We have 5 trophies in our inventory. That is definitely enough to open both Worlds 2 and 3. Now before, I went through World 3 before going through World 2, but this time I'm just going to go through these levels in order. Why am I doing that? I can just walk this way. Ooh, I wonder. I'm going to do a quick save here. Let's see here. No, probably nothing here. No, there won't be. I was seeing if I could, like, glitch a cutscene that was in the bonus for getting all 34 trophies. But no, that's actually something else. I wonder. Let's see, this is a spring pad. You have to earn the spring boots. Did I spell it wrong there? Did I spell it wrong there? Yeah, all the spring pads have that same misspelling. Well, almost all of them. I imagine that since you can't even reach this one without having the spring boots, this one actually functions. Well, actually it doesn't function. It just doesn't have the message programmed in to tell you to get the spring boots. Would be funny though if I could actually make it work. Alright, here we are in Sealand, and you know what? The same the logic that applies to how the spring pads work and the messages don't do anything if you can't even reach the spring pad without the spring boots also applies to the whirlpool. So if we come to this whirlpool, it tells us that we need to learn guild growth. However, if we come over to this whirlpool, you cannot reach this whirlpool without knowing guild growth, and so it actually works. We are actually down here without knowing how to use whirlpools. That's pretty interesting. Also, once again, we have a situation where this is warping us to another map that is like the map we just came from, or something like that. Basically, I'll just show it off. Let's see, we got right here, here's the whirlpool. If we go down, there's no more map down here, it's just a vast empty space. So if we come down here normal, it looks like we're on the same map, and now there's suddenly stuff down here. However, if we go up here, it sort of just ends. And this whirlpool doesn't do anything. Let me quick save, and nope, that doesn't do anything. And neither do these springs. They don't need to do anything because you can't normally reach them. Also, it is interesting to note that this intersection is part of the same map, so if we go up this whirlpool, we wind up in here, in the middle where the sandcastle is. That's also kind of interesting. You know what, I don't feel like defeating Peggy just yet, so I'm going to go into this castle now. Now the only way to get in here is if you're disguised, so the game thinks that we're disguised and removes it. So I'm just going to ahead and grab this real quick. We haven't found any of the other clues, so the treasure chest holding the last clue isn't going to be up here. And let's see, there's also these guys. Screw those guys. Well, that was easy. And now they're just suddenly down here. Alright, so at this point I have found the first treasure clue, which means if we go ahead and head down here... Let me grab this real quick. We can go ahead and get this here clue. And when we leave, we are invisible because we're supposed to be... No, wait, we're not invisible. Darn, I thought I could trick the game. Oh wait, I can trick the game. I'll just step here and then hold circle to get out of there. Now we're invisible. Too bad the enemies don't think I'm invisible. They're still quite on the chase for me. You know what? I feel like racing toy boats, so I'm just going to go ahead and go over here and start this here minigame. I'm still invisible. That's funny. If I wanted to, I could just go ahead and head down here and grab that, and I'll just dawdle and there. Apparently standing where I am right now automatically triggers the boat to go there. I guess because the spot I'm standing on is where the token was, and since you can't reach the token without already having taken so many steps, I didn't even program all the previous steps into this. It's kind of interesting. Let me go ahead and reset, because I wanted to be visible for this. It's gonna be more interesting. Alright, so the race starts. 3, 2, 1, go! I win! And we're still a boat. Not entirely sure why I'm still a boat. I bet you I have the minigame item now. No, I don't have the minigame item because there's no reason to give me the minigame item. That map is only for the minigames. You can't enter it without being in a minigame, so there was no reason to have the minigame item. So I'm gonna go ahead and quick save. Let me see if I can figure this out. Apparently you actually had to complete so much of the track in order for this to be all, yup, you're definitely at the finish line and not cheating. Why is that like that? I'm not entirely sure. Let's see what happens if I step here. Is that enough? Yep, that's all that's needed. I like the idea of wandering around as a boat though, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that, and then we're going to go back into this minigame. And I'll do the same thing that got me stuck as a boat. So I forgot to mention this before, but if you try cutting down this bush before getting the hint that's underwater, instead of giving you the hint, it actually cuts down the bush. Why does cutting the bush down not reveal this hint sitting here? I don't know. Why is the hint in the castle not there until grabbing that hint? Well, as long as I'm grabbing these hints, I might as well go ahead and grab the last hint and the trophy that comes with it. Aww. Oh well, I can make me turn into a boat again. By the way, it's worth noting that even though it looks like this path leads to where the minigame, the boat race happens, it actually doesn't lead anywhere. In fact, there's just nothingness out here, as usual. Of course, that is pretty much why I had to surround the island with rocks, so that they wouldn't go out here. Alright, so we are back in the Peggy fight, and the trophy appears somewhere up here, but I actually have it programmed correctly so that it absolutely will not activate until you actually win the boss fight. By the way, here's this boat up here. If I bump into it, it's containing the script that changes me back to normal if I happen to be wearing a disguise at the time. By the way, this is a really cool map. You're not actually supposed to be walking up here, because if I don't hold the circle button I can't move. So all this up here is just scenery. I like me as a boat, so I'm going to go ahead and reset. Okay, somehow I counted down from 5 twice. Let me reset again. Oh, okay, I see what happens. So, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when you start this fight, you are given these items, and if you get a game over, you start this fight again, and when you get a game over, it actually knows to take these items away, but since I reset and reloaded the game in here, these items weren't taken away, and now I'm given extra, so now he's going to do a funny countdown. I bet it's going to be like 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2. Let's see, 5, 5, 4, 4, yep, 3, 3, 2, 2. And there we go. The rest of this fight is pretty much going to proceed as normal, so I'll just meet you elsewhere. Although that kind of looks funny. Oh, did you see that flash that took place? That is the game taking a snapshot for the ending. Also, in case you're curious, no, you cannot escape this room once the battle starts. The stairs that appear down there do not appear at all until after this trophy appears. Alright, now, this is where we're going to have some real fun. So, this dock here leads to the pirate's ship. Of course, there's not actually anything down here, because the pirate ship is a sample map, as in, it's a preset map that the game gives you. You cannot modify it except by putting, like, events and stuff onto the map. But you cannot modify the scenery of the map. Unless the scenery is events. Like, pretend that tokens are scenery. And of course, since this is a separate map, that means that we can't actually see where this bridge is going. In fact, if this bridge actually were able to continue, it would actually climb over the sails and stuff instead of going under them. Now, that guy out there is going to be kind of interesting, and we'll get to him momentarily. First, I'm going to go ahead and collect these here trophies. Tokens. Alright, so if we come down here, let's see, not there, not there. Stepping there triggers the mermaid. So what we're going to do is hold circle to kind of bypass that event and see what we can trigger here. This is where the mermaid appears, so she does not trigger unless you step on this event standing right next to me. What about the trophy? So, this is going to be a nice speedrun tactic. I don't actually have to hunt down the pearls. As for the remaining pearl, it is standing up here. Now, stepping here or stepping here without holding the circle button is going to warp me back into the building. Reason why you can't actually walk to this door, which is implied to be how you get up here, is because, well, just look at what's going on. This stuff here is clearly intended for you to be, like, elsewhere. Like underneath, that sort of thing. Not to mention it looks weird walking over those pipes. Let's see here, how many tokens do I have? I have 98 tokens, and not sure how many trophies I should have right now. I think I have all the trophies here in Sealand, which leads us to just one more thing that we want to do. Let's see, so this pirate right here, by the way, this platform is completely walkable. Gonna quick save. This pirate right here, his sole purpose in life is to be there for the gag in the bonus for collecting all 34 trophies in the game. However, his purpose serves a little bit more than that, in fact. If we bump into him, the boat sinks. So, in case you're wondering how the boat is able to sink without the water moving, is because the water isn't ground, it is actually a background. Much like if you had a background full of clouds, this is a background full of water, and backgrounds never move. Oh sure, they can animate a little, but they don't move, and so when I tell the camera to move up, it makes the boat appear to be going down, while the water remains not moving. So, since I triggered this, I'm kinda curious what's going to happen here. Going into bloopers. And all of a sudden, we hear this song. Well, according to this, we're still in Sea Land. Let's see, what do I want to do here? I want to press down. And now we're on Mount Snow. I have entered Mount Snow without actually unlocking Mount Snow. Now that is going to be a real speedrunning tactic. In fact, it's a repeatable speedrunning tactic, because if I go ahead and just leave out here, and the game puts us in front of Sea Land because it thought we were still in Sea Land. And if we come over here, as you're about to see, Mount Snow, sure enough, is not unlocked yet. Alright, and I have returned back here. It has occurred to me that somewhere along the way I had my disguise removed, or rather, I was changed back to normal. Not entirely sure when that happened. By the way, it looks really interesting having a boat sitting on Mr. Knight's throne. Why does he have a throne anyway? He's not a king. So, let's go ahead and find out what sort of that word we can do here. Well, I think I'm done being a boat for one thing, so I'm just going to go over here and grab these. Oops, we can't walk on the water. Or can we? I say we can. After all, we are a boat. I'm going to go down here because even though we haven't learned how to use whirlpools yet, you can't actually reach this whirlpool until later in the game, and you can't get to later in the game until you learn how to use whirlpools. So I didn't bother programming it so that you can't use this without learning how to use whirlpools. Let's talk to this dog and turn into a dog. By the way, you actually do have to learn form swap in order to do this. Because it's entirely possible to play through the entire game and come here without learning form swap. And now let's have ourselves a blue dog. I don't feel like going to the dog sled race at this moment, so let's go ahead and kind of have fun and go in places. One thing I notice is that when you initially come to Mount Snow, a cutscene is supposed to play on this map. I'm not entirely sure what tells the cutscene not to play, but apparently appearing in the ice cave and walking out is enough to tell the cutscene never to play. By the way, I would just like to say screw this boulder, and screw having to have 100 tokens in order to use these. So here we are in this part of the level, and when I was going through here originally, I had this really confusing explanation about how this bridge here keeps track of whether I'm trying to cross it from this side or from this side. So I'm going to demonstrate why I had to do whatever I was trying to explain. If I glitch my way over here and step on it, it tells me to stand here. Which is why I need an event sitting here to tell this thing to let me stand here instead. By the way, if we go out here, there's like a little bit of nothingness. Parts of the maps have been removed because you wouldn't actually be able to see these parts of the maps normally during gameplay. Alright, so here we are in Zone's lair. We haven't actually triggered the boss fight yet, but Zone's up here from the very start, watching us as we explore down here, trying to figure out what's in here. I don't feel like fighting Zone, so let's see if we can't like skip it somehow. If I like stand here, normally you can't stand here, but if I hold circle and stand here, and let's see what happens if I bump into this canister. Apparently, that continues the boss fight. So we can completely skip the introduction of this boss. In fact, you don't even get the sparklies that kill you if you're in the middle of the fight. Because since the fight hasn't technically started, they don't appear. And I'm willing to bet if I bump into the rest of these, the same thing is going to happen, in which it's just going to continue on until we win the fight. So let me go ahead and try that. Oops, I got zapped too. Nope. That is actually not a way you can actually win this fight. I have destroyed all the power cells, but since the battle didn't technically start, the battle can't technically end either. So let's see what happens if I just kind of do this. We'll skip through this real quick, and we'll bump into a power cell again. Oh, you can't bump into the power cells. So I guess the only way to do this is to wait for these to kind of follow you. Come on over here. Does this automatically... Oh, not only that, but since this power cell was destroyed, it doesn't actually recognize that the power cell can be destroyed. So I've essentially made this fight impossible to win. Unless, of course, I decide to kill myself. There's gotta be another way to skip this fight, though. Alright, so here we are again. Let's just go ahead and head up here, and... let's just... High zone. Where's this taking me? Where am I going here? Huh. So bumping into him does that for some reason. Oh, do you mean there's no way to skip this fight? Let me bump into you again. Kinda looks like he doesn't have a face now, because I bumped into him from the top. By the way, I don't know if you saw, but while I was standing up here, in fact I'm just going to show it anyway, your tail is kind of sticking out the top of this graphic. So what happens if I bump into him now? Oh, it's just going to do that same thing. Well, the next thing I'm going to try is, instead of having to wait for these sparkly dots to come after me, I'm going to go ahead and just bump into the power cells again. See if I can win the fight like this. No, I would say not, because these did not change. So I'm going to assume that, nope, I really am going to have to fight this, get through this battle the normal way. That's sad. Wait, no it's not. I know how to do this. Alright, so here we are before the fight starts. The problem that I think I was doing was I was going and bumping right into the power cells without triggering the fact that I'm supposed to be standing behind the power cell. So if I like stand here and bump into the power cell... Okay, to explain this better, normally what you're supposed to do is stand under the canisters so that when the laser comes after you, it hits the power cell instead, and you're supposed to wait for the sparkly dots to come after you and then step on them in order to do this. But let's see if simply stepping here and bumping into this actually does something. Nope, absolutely not. Try as I might, it really does seem that I'm going to have to get through that boss fight legit. So, unless I figure something else out, I guess I'm going to meet you after the fight somewhere. Wait, I think I finally figured out a way to speed up this fight. So let's see, if I stand here and then hold circle to get back to this. Yep. Alright, I think this is going to work. If the sparkly dots change, then this is going to work. It works. Okay. So there is a way to quickly get through this fight. Stand here, hold circle, get on the sparkly dot, and it still thinks I'm standing there, which goes ahead and continues the battle. I knew there had to be a way to cheat this fight. Oh, there's an extra fast way to cheat the fight too. Let me reset and I'll show you. Alright, so I started the fight. I'm going to step here and then press circle. Then I'm going to step here and kind of like here. And I'll hold circle. And then I'll just step here and hold circle. I'll just step here and hold circle. And we're going to go ahead and come back up here real quick. Alright. So, because I was in front of that last one before holding circle, it thinks I'm standing there. But if I also do this, because I walked in front of all 4 canisters and then held circle to go between them, it still thinks I'm standing in front of the others as well. So all I have to do from here is just keep walking into these sparkly dots, and the rest of them are going to go ahead and get destroyed. And that is the fastest way to cheat your way through this battle in test play. Also, once again, the screen flashed because that's where a snapshot was taken for the credits. Finally. That certainly took a while. It was like a boss fight just to find a way to beat to cheat the boss fight. Hopefully you don't mind that that took so long. Alright, so here we are up here. Since we don't have the hover pad, or the hover boots, we can't actually go across this. Except I can, because I can just hold circle. So apparently all of these are the same event because they don't actually do anything, so I just saved memory by having most of these be duplicates. Now here, we actually have hover pads that are actually functional, because you can't actually see over here without taking the hover pads over here, so I just didn't bother hiding them, because there's no reason to. You can't see them anyway. Of course, it's completely unnecessary to really take them anyway, so I just come over here, grab this trophy. So that's one less trophy we had to come back for. By the way, if you recall, when we took the shortcut through the pirate to get into Mount Snow, what happened was, after the blooper with Mr. Knight in his castle with a broken doorbell, the screen blacked out before transitioning here. And since here... Well, let me see. Alright, when you start the bonus for getting all 34 trophies, you're given an item that tells the game, hey, we're in the middle of this bonus. But since I got in this room without having that item, it just was like coming into this room normally, except the screen was blackened by the previous thing, and so that's why it was black in this room, and that's why I had to press down in order to make this map appear normal. I'm not entirely sure why this map was told to appear normal, but I'm kind of glad it did, because this is quite a nice exploit. And suddenly this starts. Why did that start? Something that I obtained elsewhere made the game think that I had just gone through that fight, through the dog race. Actually, I just realized that now that I haven't gone through this minigame yet, I can actually show off what they say. what they say before winning the minigame, that is. And now you know. Now, unfortunately, there is no way to trigger the evil dog guy. He steps out of the forest somewhere here. I am assuming his event is like right here, which is why I don't have it able to be triggered. Do I want to go through here? Nah. I'm not going to worry about that one. The reason why I didn't go into that dog sled minigame is, quite honestly, I can't think of anything interesting to goof off with. Especially since whenever I did that legit, I also showed what it looks like in surrounding sections. So, no reason to show off it again. So, let's see here. Well, we beat the bosses, so we can go ahead and go through here. From up top. That is a legit glitch. No, seriously, I wasn't even doing anything. I was just... You can totally trigger this door from the top. Normal gameplay just by touching it from the top. I did not know that. And it is... Wow. As for you, Jester, I really don't feel like talking to you, so I'm just gonna do... Oh, I have to talk to you. I can't trigger the switch until I talk to you. That took a lot of button presses before I decided, okay, you can have it. Alright, so we're done with the lower levels, and now we have to go into the upper levels. However, we have a bit of a problem here. And I will be explained when I... Let's just go this way. It might actually be longer to go this way, but I'm going this way. So, warp to upper levels? Yes. In test play mode, to next scenario event won't be executed. If you want to execute next scenario, worlds 4 through 6, play game. This is absolutely lame. You cannot have a memory card change in the middle of test play. Normally, when I step on that pad, it's going to tell me, okay, load worlds 4 through 6, and I would insert worlds 4 through 6, and we would continue the game from there. But since we're in test play, it won't actually let me do this. So let's see here. I'm going to want to do this. I'm going to want to create a quick save. Pretty sure. And I'm going to want to go in here and load the next memory card. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. Alright, I have loaded Worlds 4 through 6, and unfortunately that quick save has been disabled. What happens if I try to continue from that last save I made? It is also disabled. So you can't actually do that. Unless I do this. Game info. Scenario name, Worlds 4 through 6. Have to change this to Worlds 1 through 3. And now we can resume. This is the only way to continue a test play from one memory card onto the next. Which gets confusing because now I have two memory cards with save files that have the same name. But anyway, now we have actually made it up here, complete with our current stats and stuff. So let us head on to Cloud 9. Actually, screw Cloud 9. We could just go through here and head on to World 5. I'm actually kinda curious what that might break.